Welcome back. In this section, we're going to learn all about the reflex arc. So when we learn about the reflex arc, there are 5 structures to it, okay? And so I've numbered them 1 through 5. And for this one, I've taken a piece of skin. So we're talking about an external part, but remember, this could also be internal. So I could have put an internal organ here instead. And that's because the first structure in a reflex arc has to be a sensory receptor. So it could be a receptor in your heart or your lungs or your intestine or anywhere else. The second structure is going to be a sensory neuron. So we can see it has dendrites up here by the sensory receptor. And then you can see the cell bodies right here in this ganglion, and then the axon. And this one is going to the middle of the spinal cord where the axon terminal is located for the sensory neuron. So the sensory neuron is blue, just like the blue writing for the word sensory neuron. The third structure is an interneuron. Now this drawing only shows one, but I put the S here because it can be more than one interneuron. And remember, interneurons are 100% within the central nervous system. So this is showing the cell body. So the cell body is always represented by a ball and a stick figure drawing of a neuron. And then the axon is the stick, and then the little V shape is the axon terminal. So that is showing the interneuron. The fourth structure is going to be a motor neuron in red. So we see the cell body of the motor neuron is still within the spinal cord. Okay. But notice that the axon exits the spinal cord. So most of that neuron is in the peripheral nervous system. And then the axon terminal takes it all the way to the effector organ. That's where that final synapse is going to be located. So let me show an example that has more than one interneuron, and also recall that it doesn't have to be the spinal cord. It could be the brain as well, especially for your face. If we're talking muscles of your face, those are going to go to your brain. They're not going to go to your spinal cord. They're not going to go from your face down to your spinal cord and then back up to your brain. Okay. So here from your finger, it's showing a sensory neuron going to the spinal cord, but then we could have an interneuron traveling all the way up to a part of the brain known as the thalamus, and then a new interneuron that would take you to the primary sensory area of the brain, and then a new interneuron that would take you to the primary motor cortex, and then a new interneuron which would take you back down to the thalamus, and then a new interneuron that would take you all the way back down the spinal cord. And then finally, a motor neuron that would take you back out to the finger to cause motor movement of that finger. Okay. So we can have synapses within the brain as well as within the spinal cord. So 5 required structures in the reflex arc, but notice only 3 of them are neurons: the sensory neuron, the interneuron, and the motor neuron. So the function of the sensory neuron is sensory input. So looking at it closer, we're going to have a sensory receptor detecting the stimuli from either external or internal environment. And the sensory neuron is going to convert that to a nerve impulse, which is then going to take it to the central nervous system. In this drawing, it's taking it to the brain because it's coming from the eyeball. So sensory neuron is in the peripheral nervous system. And so that is then once it's in the central nervous system, that's where it's going to be processed. So remember, sensory neuron could also be going into the spinal cord as shown here. The interneuron is the neuron that gives us the function of integration. Okay. And the interneurons are only in the brain and spinal cord. So they're 100% in the central nervous system. They're bringing together all the impulses that were generated to make sense of those messages, to create and determine what the specific response is going to be, and create memory if needed. And then motor neurons are the ones that give us the function of motor output. So here the motor neuron is this purple one. Notice that the cell body is going to be synapsing with the interneuron. So the cell body is going to be in the central nervous system, but the motor neuron itself is going to be part of the peripheral nervous system. Okay. Cell body in the brain or spinal cord, the axon's all part of a nerve in the peripheral nervous system. And then it's going to synapse at the effector cells, and those cells are going to be doing the response. Okay. So when we look at the neuronal functions in the reflex arc, we have sensory input, integration, and motor output. Very straightforward in the correct order. But before the sensory input, we would have to have a receptor, and after the motor output, we would have to have an effector. So this entire process is done in a millisecond and does not require any conscious thought on your part. And in fact, conscious thought on your part, that pan was hot, usually occurs after the motor output has already been done. So what are these effector cells I keep on talking about? Well, from looking at the pictures, you all have figured out that skeletal muscle is one of the effector cells. Absolutely. Well, there are 4 different types of effector cells, and here's the thing. 3 of them are your muscle cells. So not only is skeletal muscle your cell, so is smooth muscle and cardiac muscle. Okay, so smooth muscle will contract and cardiac muscle will contract or relax. And then the 4th type of effector cell are your glands. They will either secrete or stop secreting, whether it's saliva or tears or gastric secretions or pancreatic secretions or secretions from wherever. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is take a moment, review all the components of the reflex arc, the 5 required components of the reflex arc, what the 3 neurons were, what the functions of each of those 3 neurons were. Here I have the little cheat sheet, which makes it a whole lot easier to do, and where each of those neurons is located, and which components of which neurons are in the central nervous system and which components are in the peripheral nervous system. And then when you are done with that, it's time for you to take a piece of paper and draw it on your own, label everything, write the function of everything, and actually, do a stylized brain and spinal cord and put the axon terminals and the cell bodies in the right locations. And so I'd like to thank you again for all your hard work. And hopefully you didn't find this second one so much a difficult one. Is a very concise, small topic. You should be able to master this topic in about half an hour. And then once you're sure you have this, come on back as we dive into a bigger topic, which has to do with all the cells found in nervous tissue. And I will see you shortly.